The council chamber was the largest room Captain Kim Min-jun had ever seen. The ceiling stretched up so high that clouds actually formed near the top. Representatives from 47 different species sat in curved rows that formed a massive circle. At the center, a holographic display showed star maps and fleet positions. Kim stood behind Ambassador Park Seo-yeon at the human delegation's modest desk. Compared to the grand platforms given to older species, their spot felt like an afterthought. Park sat with perfect posture, her face calm and professional. Kim knew her well enough to see the tension in her jaw. High Counselor Thexnar rose from his seat. The Zenthari commander was massive, nearly 3 meters tall with 4 arms and crystalline armor plates covering his body. His species had controlled the largest military fleet in the galaxy for over 2,000 years. When he spoke, his voice boomed through the chamber, without needing amplification. "The Devourer threat is confirmed," Thexnar announced. "Our scout ships tracked their swarm, approaching from beyond the galactic rim. They have already consumed 6 uninhabited systems. Intelligence estimates they will reach our border worlds within 4 months." A wave of worried sounds rippled through the chamber. Kim had read the reports. The Devourers were unlike anything the galaxy had faced before. They were not a civilization or empire. They were a swarm. Billions of biomechanical creatures that consumed everything in their path. Planets, ships, space stations, everything became fuel for their endless hunger. The Zenthari Empire will deploy 200 warships to form the primary defensive line. Thexnar continued. "We call upon all council members to contribute forces for a united fleet." One by one, species pledged their ships. The Vorkan Dominion offered 80 heavy cruisers. The Pelion Collective added 40 carriers. The Vorkan, DBAs. Even smaller species promised what they could. 12 ships here, 20 there. Park touched a button on her desk, activating the human request to speak. A soft chime sounded, and a light appeared above their station. Thexnar's 4 eyes fixed on them. He gestured with one upper arm. "The human delegation may speak." Park stood smoothly. Her voice was clear and confident. "The United Earth government wishes to contribute to the defensive effort. We can provide combat vessels and support ships. We request assignment to the main battle line." Silence fell over the chamber for exactly 3 seconds. Then someone laughed. Kim could not identify which species it came from, but others quickly joined in. The sound grew until it echoed off the distant ceiling. Thexnar raised one hand, and the laughter died down. His face showed what might have been amusement. "Ambassador Park, humanity has been part of this council for only 50 of your years. Your species discovered faster than light travel barely a century ago. We appreciate your enthusiasm. But warfare against threats like the Devourers requires experience and advanced technology." War Marshal Kreloth of the Vorkan Dominion stood as well. The reptilian commander's scales glittered under the chamber lights. "Perhaps the humans do not understand the scale of this threat. The Devourers destroyed the Ixthor civilization 3,000 years ago. The Ixthor had technology far beyond what Earth currently possesses." Park did not sit down. "We understand the danger, Marshal. That is precisely why we wish to help. Earth can field 40 combat ships and 30 support vessels. We have trained crews and capable commanders." Another counselor, this one from the insectoid Chittic species, activated its translator. The mechanical voice spoke what the alien could not. "Forgive our directness, but Council intelligence has scanned human vessels. Your ships use fusion drives that are 3 generations behind current galactic standards. Your weapons are mass accelerators and primitive missiles. Your armor is simple titanium steel alloys." Thexnar pulled up a holographic display. It showed images of human ships, standard patrol cruisers and frigates. The vessels looked blocky and simple compared to the sleek, curved designs of other species. These are adequate for system defense and piracy patrol perhaps. But against a swarm that can darken an entire solar system? They would be consumed in minutes. Kim felt his hands ball into fists. He kept them behind his back where no one could see. Park's expression never changed, but he knew her well enough to recognize the carefully controlled anger in her eyes. Then perhaps, Park said carefully, Earth forces could assist with support roles. Medical ships, supply runs, evacuation, coordination. Thexnar nodded, seeming relieved. That would be appropriate and appreciated. Your medical technology is quite good, we understand. And your species has shown skill at organization and logistics. Yes, support roles would be an excellent contribution. Several other counselors made agreeable sounds. The Pelian representative even bowed its flower-like head toward Park, in what might have been respect. It is decided then, Thexnar declared. Earth will provide support vessels under Zenthari fleet coordination. We thank the humans for their willingness to help. The way he said it made it clear the matter was closed. Park bowed slightly and sat down. The council moved on to other topics, discussing fleet formations and supply chains. Kim leaned forward and whispered, Ambassador, they are making a mistake. I know, Park whispered back without moving her lips, but we cannot force them to listen. The session continued for 3 more hours. By the end, the defensive plan was set. The Zenthari would command the main battle fleet of nearly 400 ships. Other species would support with specialized vessels, and Earth would stay safely in the rear, running medical stations and cargo ships. As the council adjourned, Kim and Park gathered their data tablets and began walking toward the exit. They passed clusters of alien delegates talking amongst themselves. Kim heard fragments of conversation. Did you hear the humans wanted to fight? One Vorkan officer said to another, laughing, as if their toy ships could do anything. 50 years in space and they think they understand warfare, another voice added. My species was building starships when their ancestors were still living in caves. Kim's jaw tightened. Park touched his arm gently, a silent reminder to stay calm and professional. They walked through the massive doors and into the corridor beyond. Only when they were alone in the private transport pod heading back to the human embassy did Park finally let out a long breath. She closed her eyes and leaned back against the seat. They will see, she said quietly. Let them underestimate us. Let them think we are primitive and inexperienced. Kim turned to her. Ambassador, what are you not telling me? I have served as your attaché for 3 years. I know when you are hiding something. Park opened her eyes and looked at him. A small smile crossed her face. The ships they scanned, the ones in their intelligence reports, those were exactly what we wanted them to see. I do not understand. Earth has been in space for 50 years, Captain. Do you really think we spent that entire time just building patrol boats? Park pulled up her personal data tablet and entered a security code. An image appeared, showing a ship unlike anything in the public fleet registry. It was larger, more aggressive in design, covered in weapon ports and armor plating. We have been preparing, Minjun. Preparing for something they cannot imagine. Kim stared at the image. Enough, Park said. When the Devourers come, when the Council's main fleet engages and realizes their tactics are not working, then we will show them what Earth has really been building. She closed the tablet. We are 4 Mlov, and to 5 Werf. They counted humanity out because we are new. They will learn that sometimes the newest voice has the most important thing to say. The transport pod carried them through the alien city as 2 suns set on the horizon. Kim looked out at the towers and platforms where thousands of species lived and worked together. It was a galaxy that had existed for millions of years before humans even looked up at the stars. But Earth was here now. And if the Devourers came, they would learn what it meant to face a species that had clawed its way up from a single planet through determination and will. The galaxy had counted humanity out. That was going to be their mistake. Fleet Admiral Cho Sung-hee stood on the bridge of the hospital ship, Seoul, watching the holographic display with growing concern. The Devourers had arrived 2 weeks early and in numbers 3 times larger than intelligence had predicted. The swarm appeared on sensors as a dark cloud that stretched across millions of kilometers. "All medical teams to stations," she ordered calmly. "Captain Kim, status of the evacuation fleet?" Kim Min-jun's face appeared on the communication screen. He was now commanding the support vessel Incheon, part of the Human Assistance Force. "We have 37 transports ready, Admiral. Colony worlds are beginning evacuations now. I mine. Wenji. Good. Stay close to the civilian ships. If the line breaks, you will be the only thing between millions of refugees and that swarm." On the main display, the Zenthari fleet moved into formation. 200 gleaming warships formed a wall of metal and energy shields across the border system. They were beautiful in a way, each one a work of art and engineering representing thousands of years of advancement. The Vorkan cruisers took positions on the flanks, their heavy weapons charging. Dr. Lee Hana approached Cho, data tablet in hand. The chief medical officer looked worried. "Admiral, I have reviewed the casualty estimates. If this battle goes as War Games predicted, we do not have enough medical facilities." "I know," Cho said quietly. "Prepare for much worse than the estimates." The Zenthari opened fire first. Streams of plasma lanced through space, each shot carrying enough energy to vaporize a small moon. The beams struck the leading edge of the devourer swarm. Thousands of the creatures exploded, their biomechanical bodies unable to withstand the heat. But thousands were nothing. For every devourer destroyed, 100 more pushed forward. The swarm did not slow or retreat. It simply absorbed the losses and continued advancing. "Conventional tactics," Cho muttered. "They are fighting them like ships." Beside her, Commander Yoon Ji-woo nodded. Yoon was officially the medical fleet's tactical coordinator, but Cho knew she had other training. The Devourers are not a fleet. They are a swarm. You cannot fight a swarm with ship-to-ship tactics. The Vorkan cruisers fired next, launching waves of heavy missiles. The explosions created brilliant flashes across the display. More Devourers died, but the swarm was already adapting. The creatures began moving in unpredictable patterns, spiraling and weaving through space. Missiles that should have hit struck empty void instead. Then the Devourers reached weapons range. They did not fire energy weapons or missiles. Instead, they simply crashed into the Zenthari ships like a living wave. Thousands of creatures latched onto hulls, tearing through armor with diamond-hard claws and acid that ate through metal. Ship after ship went dark as Devourers breached the hulls and killed the crews inside. "Zenthari flagship is requesting support," the communications officer reported. Cho pulled up the tactical feed. High Counselor Thexnar's command ship was covered in Devourers. Its weapons fired wildly, trying to shake them off. But for every one destroyed, 2 more took its place. "There is nothing we can do. We are medical ships." Kim's voice came over the comm. "Admiral, I am receiving distress calls from the Zenthari line. They are requesting medical assistance. Should I move closer?" "Negative, Captain. Hold your position with the civilian fleet. If you move closer, you will be destroyed." Cho hated giving that order, but it was the right one. Kim's ships carried tens of thousands of refugees. She could not risk them. On the display, a Zenthari cruiser exploded. Then another. The beautiful formation was breaking apart. Ships scattered, trying to create distance from the swarm, but the Devourers were faster than expected. They pursued relentlessly. A Vorkan commander appeared on the communication channel, his scaled face bloody. "Human vessels. We need evacuation support at coordinates 774. Our ship is breached." Dr. Lee looked at Cho. "That is 15 light seconds away. Outside our safe zone. Prepare medical teams anyway," Cho ordered. She switched channels. "Captain Kim, we have wounded at those coordinates. Can the Incheon reach them?" There was only the briefest pause before Kim answered. "Yes, Admiral. We are moving now." Cho watched as the Incheon and two other human support ships broke formation and burned toward the battle zone. The small vessels were not built for combat, but they were fast and maneuverable. They dodged through debris and scattered devourers, reaching the damaged Vorkan ship. Incheon to Seoul, Kim reported. We are taking on survivors. Heavy casualties. We need. Admiral. The devourers are pursuing us. Get those people and get out, Captain. Now. The support ships fired their thrusters at maximum, racing away from the swarm with hundreds of Vorkan survivors crammed into their cargo bays. A stream of devourers followed. Gaining ground, Cho clenched her fists, helpless to do anything but watch. Then Kim did something unexpected. The Incheon released its entire cargo of medical supplies into space behind it. Crates and containers tumbled through the void. The pursuing devourers, apparently unable to distinguish between ships and debris, stopped to investigate the objects. It bought just enough time for the support ships to escape. Clever, Yoon said with approval. Using their swarm instinct against them, but the Zenthari were not being clever. They were being slaughtered. Thexnar's flagship finally managed to shake off the devourers through a desperate burn that probably damaged its engines. The massive ship limped away from the battle, trailing atmosphere and debris. The order came an hour later. Full retreat. The defensive line had broken. The devourers had won. Over the next 3 days, the human medical fleet worked without rest. The Seoul and her sister ships became floating hospitals, treating thousands of wounded from a dozen different species. Dr. Lee and her teams moved through corridors packed with injured soldiers, doing everything they could with limited supplies. Kim's support vessels evacuated 4 more colony worlds, filling their ships beyond capacity with refugees. No one complained. The humans squeezed their own crews into smaller spaces to make room for frightened families from species they barely knew. On the 4th day, an emergency council session was called. This time, it was held aboard a station rather than the Grand Chamber. Too many counselors had died in the battle. Thexnar attended via hologram, recovering from his injuries. Ambassador Park stood at the human delegation's position. She looked tired but determined. Around the chamber, the mood was one of shock and despair. We must retreat to the core worlds, Thexnar said. His voice lacked its usual confidence. The outer colonies cannot be defended. We consolidate our forces and hold the interior. That means abandoning 17 populated worlds, a Pelian representative protested. Billions of lives. Billions that will die anyway if we waste our remaining fleet trying to defend them, Thexnar countered. The devourers are too numerous. Our tactics are ineffective. Park activated her speaking light. When recognized, she spoke clearly. There is another option. With respect, Ambassador, I do not think medical ships will change this situation, Thexnar said. I am not talking about medical ships, Park replied. Give us 2 weeks. Earth's main fleet is en route. The chamber went quiet. Then Thexnar laughed, but it was a bitter sound. Your main fleet? Ambassador? We have all seen your ships. They are 50 years behind current technology. The devourers would consume them like insects. You have seen some of our ships, Park corrected. Not all of them. What are you suggesting? War Marshal Kreloth demanded. That Earth has been hiding some secret fleet? I am suggesting that Earth has been preparing, Park said. We are a young species in this galaxy. We have learned from all of you. We have studied every war, every battle, every tactic in the Council archives. And we have built a fleet designed specifically for threats like this. Thexnar's hologram leaned forward. Even if this is true, what makes you think your tactics would succeed where ours failed? Park's expression was serious. Because you fight the devourers like they are ships, we will fight them like what they are. A swarm. An infestation. She paused. My people have experience with such things. 2 weeks, Kreloth said slowly. Then we fall back to your plan, Park said. But give us the chance. Let Earth prove that we belong on this battlefield. The vote was close, but it passed. Earth would have its chance. 2 weeks to bring its fleet. 2 weeks to prove that humanity was more than just medical ships and supply runs. As the session ended, Cho received a coded message on her personal comm. It was from Earth Defense Command. The message was short. Main fleet departure confirmed. See you at the line. Choi. Cho smiled. Fleet Admiral Choi Jin-ho was the supreme commander of Earth's military forces. If he was coming, he was bringing everything humanity had built in secret. The galaxy had counted Earth out. In 2 weeks, they would see their mistake. The staging area was deep in space, far behind the front lines. What remained of the Council fleet gathered there, battered and demoralized. Zenthari cruisers with massive scars across their hulls, Vorkan ships missing entire weapon sections. Every vessel showed signs of the terrible battle they had survived. Captain Kim Min-jun stood on the bridge of the Incheon, now serving as a coordination vessel for the human medical fleet. Through the viewing window, he could see dozens of Council warships undergoing emergency repairs. It had been 13 days since the retreat. Tomorrow was the deadline. Any word from Earth? His first officer asked. Nothing yet, Kim said. He tried to keep the worry from his voice. If the main fleet did not arrive, the Council would execute their fallback plan. 17 worlds would be abandoned. The Devourers would consume them. Ambassador Park entered the bridge, accompanied by Admiral Cho. Both women looked calm, but Kim noticed they kept checking their data tablets. The Council observers are asking questions, Park said quietly. They want to know where our fleet is. Still 12 hours until the deadline, Cho replied. Fleet Admiral Choi knows the schedule. High Counselor Thexnar's face appeared on the main communication screen. The Zenthari commander had recovered from his injuries, but something in his eyes had changed. He looked older, more cautious. Ambassador Park, I must know if Earth's fleet will actually arrive. My people are preparing to fall back to core defensive positions. If we wait too long, we will not have time to evacuate. They will arrive, Park said, with certainty. Admiral Choi has never missed a deadline. I hope you are right, Thexnar said. For all our sakes. Kim walked to the sensor station. Anything on long-range scanners? Negative, sir. No fleet-sized formations detected. The sensor officer paused. Wait. I am reading something. Multiple FTL signatures. Very large. Coming in fast from Earth's direction. Kim's heart began to beat faster. How many? 30. No. 50. 70. The officer's voice rose with excitement. Sir, I am reading over 800 FTL signatures. They are emerging now. Put it on the main display, Kim ordered. The holographic screen changed to show deep space. For a moment, nothing happened. Then reality itself seemed to tear open. Hundreds of points of light appeared as ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel. More and more kept coming, filling the space around them. Someone on the bridge whispered, "Oh my." Kim understood the feeling. He had known Earth was building ships, but this was beyond anything he had imagined. The fleet that emerged was massive, 847 vessels according to the final count. But these were not the small patrol cruisers the Council had seen. These were warships. Every single one. The lead ship was enormous, 3 times the size of a Zenthari flagship. Its hull was dark gray, covered in angular armor plates that made it look aggressive and dangerous. Weapon ports lined every surface. It bristled with missiles, railguns, energy projectors, and systems Kim did not even recognize. This is Fleet Admiral Choi Jin-ho aboard the battleship Sejong the Great. A voice came over the open channel. Earth Warfleet has arrived. All human vessels. Report status. Admiral Cho smiled broadly. Sole reporting. Medical fleet is ready to support operations. Incheon reporting, Kim added. Support fleet standing by. Good to hear your voices, Choi replied. We will take it from here. Cho. Your medical ships need to pull back to safe distance. This is going to get messy. Other human ships reported in. There were battleships, cruisers, destroyers, carriers, and dozens of ship classes that had never been seen before. Each one looked purpose-built for a specific role. This was not a fleet thrown together quickly. This represented decades of planning and construction. The Council ships began moving closer, their sensors scanning the new arrivals. Kim could imagine their shock. On the communication channels, he heard confused voices from other species. Those are human ships? Impossible. Our intelligence showed nothing like this. Where did they build all of these? We monitor every major shipyard in human space. This cannot be their entire military. No species hides this much production. Thexnar's voice cut through the chatter. Human fleet. This is High Counselor Thexnar. I must admit, you have surprised us. However, size alone will not defeat the Devourers. Our fleet was larger and still failed. Request permission to come aboard your flagship, Counselor, Choi replied. I would like to explain our battle plan. 30 minutes later, Kim watched as a diplomatic shuttle carried Admiral Choi and Ambassador Park to the Zenthari command ship. Kim was not invited, but Cho made sure a feed from the meeting was sent to key human vessels. The conference room aboard the Zenthari flagship was large enough to hold representatives from all major council species. Thexnar sat at the head of a curved table, his 4 arms resting on its surface. Other commanders filled the seats, all of them looking skeptical. Choi entered with Park at his side. The admiral was not a large man, but he carried himself with quiet confidence. His uniform was simple, without excessive decorations. He looked like someone who had spent his entire life preparing for this moment. Thank you for meeting with us, Choi said, as he activated a holographic projector. A 3-dimensional map of the battle space appeared above the table. I understand you have concerns about our tactics. Your fleet is impressive, Thexnar admitted. But the Devourers do not fight like any enemy we have faced. They overwhelm through numbers and adaptability. How do you plan to counter that? By using the same approach, Choi replied calmly. He touched a control, and the display changed to show the Devourer swarm. You are correct that they are unlike any traditional enemy. That is why traditional fleet tactics failed. We tried every standard formation and strategy, War Marshal Kreloth said defensively. I know, Choi said. And that is the problem. You fought them like they were ships. Formations, targeting priorities, fleet engagements. These tactics work against organized navies, but the Devourers are not a navy. He changed the display again. Now it showed Earth, specifically images of locust swarms, computer virus attacks, and naval battles against submarine wolf packs. My species has faced threats like this on our own world. Swarms of insects that blackened the sky, digital viruses that spread through networks, enemy submarines that attacked in coordinated packs. We learned how to fight distributed threats. What are you suggesting? A Pelion commander asked. Everything in Earth's Warfleet is designed for swarm combat, Choi explained. Our ships do not rely on big guns and thick armor. We use point defense networks that turn space into kill zones. We deploy autonomous drones that can match enemy numbers. We have hunter-killer ships designed to identify and destroy hive nodes. And we have cyber warfare units that can disrupt their coordination. Thexnar leaned forward. You are saying you can hack the Devourers? We can try, Choi said. The Devourers use bioelectrical signals to coordinate. Our analysis suggests those signals can be jammed or redirected. We also noticed they target larger ships first, so we will give them larger ships to target, while our smaller vessels do the real damage. He pulled up schematics of human ships. Each one was covered in annotations showing weapon systems and tactical roles. Our carriers will deploy drone swarms. Our destroyers will establish overlapping point defense zones. Our hunter ships will use predictive algorithms to target command nodes. And our electronic warfare ships will blind and confuse them. This is very different from standard doctrine, Kreloth said slowly. Yes, Choi agreed. Because standard doctrine failed. With respect, Counselor, your species have been fighting ship-to-ship battles for thousands of years. You are very good at it. But the Devourers are not ships. He paused. Earth has only been in space for 50 years. We do not have your experience with traditional warfare, but we have experience with this kind of threat. Thexnar was quiet for a long moment. Kim could see him processing everything. Finally, the Zenthari commander spoke. You have studied us. Studied our wars, our tactics, our mistakes. Every battle in the Council archives. Park confirmed. And we noticed something. Every species fights similarly. You have convergent evolution in warfare, just like in biology, but Earth evolved differently. We developed our tactics in isolation, against different threats, and you kept this secret, Thexnar said. There was no anger in his voice. Just observation. We did, Choi admitted. Because we knew how you would react. You saw us as primitive. If we had revealed our true fleet, you would have seen us as a threat. Better to appear weak and be underestimated. You let us mock you, Kreloth said, with what might have been respect. Yes, Choi said simply. Pride is a luxury, survival is not. Thexnar stood, his massive form towering over the table. Fleet Admiral Choi, your tactical plan is unconventional and risky. It goes against everything we have learned about space warfare. He paused, then extended one of his 4 hands. Which is exactly why it might work. Earth's fleet will take point position. Council forces will support as you direct. Choi shook the offered hand. We will need your heavy ships to draw initial attention. Can you do that? Yes, Thexnar said. We, Zenthari, may have been arrogant, but we are not cowards. We will give you the opening you need. As the meeting ended, Kim watched Choi and Park return to their shuttle. The human fleet began moving into new formations, positions that made no sense according to standard tactics. But Kim trusted his commanders. They knew what they were doing. The Devourers were coming. In 2 days, they would reach this position. And when they arrived, they would face something they had never encountered before. They would face humanity's way of war. The Devourers arrived like a storm made of living metal and hunger. Sensors detected them 6 hours before visual contact, a dark cloud that blotted out the stars. The swarm numbered in the billions, each creature the size of a small aircraft, all of them moving with terrifying coordination. Captain Kim Min-jun watched from the Incheon's bridge as Earth's Warfleet moved into position. The formation looked strange compared to traditional fleet tactics. Instead of a solid wall, the human ships spread out in a loose network with large gaps between vessels. Council ships, including the Zenthari flagship, took positions at the front, as agreed. All ships, this is Fleet Admiral Choi, the voice came over the open channel. Remember your training. Trust your systems. And watch each other's backs. Today, we show the galaxy what Earth can do. Commander Yoon Ji-woo sat at the tactical station aboard one of Earth's newest destroyers, the Gwangju. Her squadron, Dragonflight, consisted of 12 fast attack ships designed specifically for swarm interception. They hung in space 200 kilometers behind the main line, engines hot and ready. Dragon lead to Dragonflight, Yoon said calmly. Weapons free on my mark. Target the edges of the swarm, not the center. We cut them apart piece by piece. On the Sejong the Great, Admiral Choi studied the tactical display with intense focus. Beside him, Lieutenant Kang Dae-jung coordinated the weapon systems across the entire fleet. Every ship was networked together, sharing targeting data and sensor information in real time. Enemy swarm entering maximum range, Kang reported. Xanthari ships are opening fire. The Council vessels unleashed a devastating barrage. Plasma beams and heavy missiles tore into the leading edge of the swarm. Thousands of devourers exploded, but as before, the swarm simply absorbed the losses and kept coming. They began their weaving, unpredictable movements, making targeting difficult. Wait for it, Choi said quietly. Let them commit to their attack pattern. The Devourers accelerated toward the Council ships, just as they had in the previous battle. They focused on the largest targets, the Xanthari battleships, with their thick armor and powerful weapons. The swarm began to concentrate, forming into a massive spearhead aimed directly at Thexnar's flagship. Now, Choi ordered. All ships, execute Pattern Delta. Activate Point Defense Network. Across the human fleet, thousands of smaller weapons came online. These were not the massive guns designed to destroy ships. They were rapid-fire systems, each one capable of tracking and hitting dozens of small, fast-moving targets per second. Railguns, laser point defense turrets, and automated missile systems created an interconnected web of overlapping fire zones. The Devourers hit the network like insects flying into a fan. The space between human ships became a killing field where nothing could survive. Creatures that tried to fly through the gaps were shredded by crossfire from multiple vessels. The precision was incredible, each ship's computer coordinating with every other to create maximum coverage with minimum wasted fire. Dragonflight, engage, Choi ordered. Yoon's squadron burst forward at maximum acceleration. The destroyers were fast and agile, carrying lighter armor but much better engines than traditional warships. They dove into the swarm from the side, weapons blazing. Target the clusters, Yoon called out. They are trying to reform. Do not let them organize. Dragonflight worked like a school of fish, moving in perfect coordination. When one ship fired, the others adjusted their positions to cover the gaps. They did not try to destroy every devourer. Instead, they disrupted the swarm's coordination, breaking large groups into smaller ones that were easier to handle. On the Seoul, Admiral Cho watched the battle from the medical fleet's position. Dr. Lee stood beside her, both women silent as they observed Earth's tactics in action. It is working, Lee whispered. They are actually holding them back. More than that, Cho replied, pointing at the tactical display. Watch the pattern. The Devourers are confused. They do not know where to attack. Every time they focus on one target, our ships adjust and hit them from a different angle. The carrier groups launched their next wave. From the bellies of massive ships, thousands of autonomous drones emerged. These were not piloted craft. They were smart missiles, each one with its own AI system capable of identifying and pursuing individual targets. The drones spread out like a swarm themselves, matching the Devourers in number and mobility. This is insane, Thexnar's voice came over the command channel. You are fighting a swarm with a swarm. Exactly, Choi replied. They adapted to fight ships. Let us see how they handle fighting themselves. The drone swarm crashed into the Devourers. It was chaos. Millions of small craft engaging in a three-dimensional battle across thousands of cubic kilometers. But the human drones had an advantage. They could communicate instantly, sharing information and adjusting tactics in microseconds. The Devourers used bioelectrical signals that were much slower. Electronic warfare units, begin jamming, Kang ordered. 3 specialized ships that had been hiding behind the main fleet activated their systems. These vessels looked like ordinary cruisers, but they carried experimental technology designed by Earth's cyber warfare divisions. Powerful transmitters began broadcasting signals on the same frequencies the Devourers used to coordinate. The effect was immediate and dramatic. Sections of the swarm began moving erratically. Some Devourers attacked others. Groups that should have been working together suddenly scattered in different directions. The coordination that made them so dangerous fell apart. It is working, Kang reported with excitement. We are disrupting their command signals. Keep it up, Choi ordered. Hunter teams, you are clear to engage primary targets. 6 ships broke from the main formation. These were smaller vessels, but they carried sophisticated sensor arrays designed to do one thing: identify the hive nodes. In every swarm, there were leaders, controllers that directed the others. These nodes were hidden among millions of identical creatures, but they had slightly different energy signatures. Lieutenant Park Hae-jin commanded one of the hunter ships. Her vessel, the Busan, slipped through the chaos like a ghost. Passive sensors analyzed every devourer they passed, looking for the unique signature patterns. Contact, her sensor officer called out. Hive node identified. Coordinates transmitting to fleet. All hunter ships, converge on designated target, Park ordered. Launch on my mark. The 6 hunter ships fired simultaneously. Their missiles were different from the standard weapons. These carried specialized warheads designed to release electromagnetic pulses tuned to specific frequencies. The missiles reached the hive node and detonated. A section of the swarm, roughly 50,000 devourers, suddenly went dark. Without their command node, they stopped coordinating. They became individuals instead of a unified force. The human point defense network cut them down methodically. Target destroyed, Park reported. Searching for next node. Across the battlefield, the pattern repeated. Hunter ships identified nodes. Concentrated fire destroyed them. Sections of the swarm fell apart. The drones kept the devourers busy, while the point defense network created impassable kill zones. The electronic warfare ships continued jamming, turning the enemy's own coordination system against them. But the devourers were not beaten yet. They adapted, as they always did. New nodes formed to replace destroyed ones. They began targeting the electronic warfare ships, recognizing them as priority threats. A massive wave of creatures broke away from the main swarm and burned toward those critical vessels. Sejong, this is EW3. A panicked voice came over the channel. We have over 10,000 contacts inbound. We cannot hold them off. Dragon flight, intercept. Choi ordered immediately. Yoon did not hesitate. Her squadron changed course, pushing their engines to dangerous levels. They reached the electronic warfare ship just as the devourers arrived. Dragonflight formed a protective sphere around the vulnerable vessel, their point defense systems firing constantly. We cannot hold this position long, Yoon reported through gritted teeth. Too many targets. Council ships, we need heavy fire on coordinates 4, 7, 8, Choi called out. Dexnar's response was immediate. Zenthari fleet, all batteries, fire at will. The massive Zenthari ships rotated and unleashed everything they had. Plasma beams carved through the devourer swarm like a burning sword. The combined fire of Earth's defensive screen and the Council's heavy weapons created a massacre. The wave of devourers broke against it and shattered, but Dragon 7 did not escape. A cluster of devourers breached their point defense and latched onto the hull. The ship's self-destruct activated automatically, denying the enemy any chance to learn from captured technology. The destroyer vanished in a bright flash. Dragon 7 down, Yoon reported, her voice tight with controlled emotion. Continuing engagement. The battle raged for 4 more hours. It was brutal, exhausting work. The humans lost ships, 89 in total by the end. But they held the line. Every hive node the devourers formed was identified and destroyed. Every attempt to concentrate their forces was disrupted by jamming or broken up by drone swarms. Every gap in the defenses was covered by overlapping point defense fire. Finally, the devourers did something they had never done before in recorded history. They retreated. The swarm pulled back, leaving behind billions of dead creatures floating in space. They fled back toward the edge of the galaxy, pursued by human hunter ships that made sure they kept running. On the Sejong the Great, Admiral Choi sat down heavily in his command chair. He looked exhausted, but satisfied. Around him, his bridge crew was cheering and hugging each other. Fleet Admiral, we are receiving congratulations from Council forces. Kang reported with a huge smile. Choi nodded slowly. Acknowledge them. Then get me casualty reports and damage assessments. We won the battle, but we paid for it. Kim Min-jun watched from the Incheon as the human medical fleet moved forward to begin rescue operations. There were wounded to collect, both human and alien. Ships to be recovered, the grim work that came after every victory. But as he looked at the debris field where the battle had been fought, he felt something he had not expected. Pride. Earth had been counted out, dismissed as too young and too primitive, and they had just saved the galaxy. The comm system beeped. Captain Kim, this is Admiral Choi. You and your crew did excellent work, keeping those refugees safe. Earth Defense Command recognizes your service. Thank you, Admiral, Kim replied. It was an honor to serve. The honor is ours, Captain. Get some rest. Something tells me the Council will have a lot to say to us soon. Kim smiled. Yes, the Council would have much to say. Earth had changed everything. 3 weeks after the battle, the Council chamber was rebuilt and reopened. The Grand Space held fewer representatives now. Many had died fighting the Devourers, but the survivors gathered to honor those who had fallen and to discuss the future. Ambassador Park Seo-yeon stood at the human delegation's position, but it was not the small desk in the back anymore. Earth had been given a seat in the primary circle, equal to the oldest council members. Captain Kim Min-jun stood beside her in his dress uniform, recently promoted to commander for his actions during the evacuations. The casualty numbers were displayed on the central holographic screen. Earth had lost 312 ships out of 847. 47,000 human personnel had died in the battle, but the alternative had been much worse. 14 council worlds were saved. Billions of lives preserved. High Counselor Thexnar rose to speak. The Zenthari commander moved slowly, still recovering from injuries sustained when his ship had been hit during the final push. When he spoke, his voice carried across the chamber with the weight of sincere emotion. We gather today to remember the fallen and to acknowledge a truth that shames us. Thexnar began. 6 months ago, humanity offered to help defend our worlds. We laughed at them. We dismissed their offer because they were young, because their technology seemed primitive, because our pride told us we knew better. He paused, looking directly at Park. We were fools. Earth saved us. Not with superior technology or overwhelming force, but with something we had forgotten. They saved us with new thinking, with adaptability, with the courage to approach an impossible problem from a completely different direction. Thexnar raised all 4 of his arms in a traditional Zenthari gesture of deep respect. On behalf of the Zenthari Empire, I formally apologize to humanity and to Ambassador Park. We were arrogant. We underestimated you. And we nearly paid for that mistake with our civilization. Around the chamber, other representatives stood and made similar gestures of respect. The Vorkan War Marshal bowed his head. The Pelion Collective's representative spread its petals wide. Even species that rarely showed emotion made clear their gratitude. Park remained standing calmly, waiting for the chamber to quiet. When she spoke, her voice was gentle but firm. We accept your apology, High Counselor, but we do not require it. Every species makes mistakes. What matters is learning from them. She touched a control on her podium, and new images appeared on the central display. They showed human shipyards, design facilities, training centers. Many of you have asked how Earth built such a fleet in secret. The answer is simple. We did not hide it. We simply worked quietly while learning from all of you. The images changed to show Council military archives, tactical databases, historical records. For 50 years, we studied every war in galactic history. We learned from your victories and your defeats. We saw patterns. We noticed that every species fought similarly because you all evolved to fight other organized civilizations. But Earth evolved differently, Park continued. We fought different enemies on our homeworld. diseases that spread through populations, invasive species that overwhelmed ecosystems, distributed computer networks that required new defensive strategies. When we designed our Warfleet, we drew from all of that experience. War Marshal Kreloth spoke up. Your tactics were brilliant, Ambassador. Many of our military academies are already requesting to study them. Would Earth be willing to share this knowledge? Park smiled slightly. Yes, but with one condition. We share knowledge as equals, not as teachers to students. Earth has much to learn from you as well. Our victory came because we combined our unique perspective with technology and strategies we learned from Council archives. A representative from the Chitic species activated its translator. The Council wishes to offer Earth a permanent seat on the Security Council. We also propose forming a unified defense force with human tactical doctrine as the foundation. The chamber buzzed with agreement. This was unprecedented. A species that had been in the Council for only 50 years was being offered a position that typically took thousands of years to earn. Park was quiet for a moment, considering carefully. Kim watched her, curious what she would say. Finally, she spoke. Earth accepts the Security Council seat with gratitude. However, we must decline command of a unified defense force. Surprised murmurs filled the chamber. Thexnar looked confused. Ambassador, why refuse? You have proven your capability. Because we did not do this for power, Park replied simply. We fought the Devourers because you are our neighbors, our friends. Earth believes in cooperation, not domination. We will gladly serve in a unified force, contribute our tactics and technology. Train together with your fleets. But we will not seek to control it. She looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of representatives from dozens of species. We are young. We make mistakes. We have much to learn. What we offer is partnership, our unique perspective combined with your experience and wisdom. Together, we are stronger than any of us, alone. The chamber was silent for a long moment. Then Thexnar began a slow, rhythmic sound, a Zenthari expression of profound respect. Other species joined with their own traditional sounds. The noise built until it echoed through the massive space, a symphony of gratitude and acknowledgement. After the formal session ended, there was a reception for the delegates. Kim found himself talking with young officers from a dozen different species, all of them asking questions about human tactics. He did his best to answer. Though he admitted he was not a tactical expert, Dr. Lee Hanna was there too, surrounded by medical officers from other species. Her innovations during the battle, including the idea to use medical ships as electronic warfare platforms, had saved countless lives. Several governments were asking her to teach at their military medical academies. Admiral Cho Sung-hee stood with Fleet Admiral Choi Jin-ho near one of the viewing windows, both of them looking out at the stars. Kim approached them, curious about their conversation. The Council wants us to build new shipyards in their core systems, Choi was saying. They want to construct fleets using our designs. Will you accept? Cho asked. Yes, but with conditions, Choi replied. Joint construction, mixed crews, shared command. We cannot let them become dependent on us. That would just create a different kind of problem. He noticed Kim and smiled. Commander Kim, congratulations on your promotion. I hear you are being offered a position, commanding a joint task force. Yes, sir, Kim confirmed. Human and Vorkan ships, working together to patrol the border regions. I am honored, but nervous. I have never commanded a mixed species unit. None of us have, Choi said. We will all be learning together. That is the point. He looked back out at the stars. For too long, each species worked alone. The Devourers taught us that isolation is weakness. Now we build something new. Something better. A week later, Kim stood on the bridge of his new command. A heavy cruiser called the Unity. Half his crew were human, half were Vorkan. The ship itself was a hybrid design, combining Earth point defense systems with Vorkan heavy weapons and armor. It was not perfect, but it was a start. His first officer was a Vorkan named Threx, a younger relative of War Marshal Kreloth. Threx looked at the crew working together at their stations and made a sound that Kim had learned meant satisfaction. "My uncle says I should learn from you humans," Threx said in his grinding voice. "He says you think differently. And that difference saved us all." "We learned from you too," Kim replied. "Your armor technology, your shield systems, your experience. Neither of us could have won alone." "No," Threx agreed. "But together, we are strong." On Earth, in the orbital shipyards above the planet, construction continued. But now it was not secret. Council observers watched as new ships took shape, offering suggestions and sharing their own technologies. Humans worked alongside Zenthari, engineers, Pelian scientists, Chitic designers. The barriers were coming down. Ambassador Park stood in her office on the Earth Embassy station, looking at reports from across the galaxy. New treaties were being signed. Trade agreements, cultural exchanges, technology sharing. The war had forced the Council species to truly see Earth for the first time, and what they saw was a potential partner, not a primitive newcomer. There was a chime at her door. "Enter," she called. Thexnar stepped in, moving carefully in the lower gravity of the human section. "Ambassador, I wanted to speak with you privately, before I return to Zenthara Prime." "Of course, High Counselor. Please sit." The massive alien lowered himself into a reinforced chair. "I came to thank you personally, not as a counselor to an ambassador, as one person to another." He was quiet for a moment. "I was so certain that experience and age meant wisdom. I forgot that sometimes the newest voice has the most important thing to say." "You were protecting your people," Park said gently. "That is your duty. We do not blame you for being cautious." "But I was not just cautious," Thexnar said. "I was dismissive, arrogant. I saw humanity's youth and assumed weakness. I will not make that mistake again." He stood. "My government is proposing a new initiative. Junior species will be given full military partnership opportunities from their first day on the Council. Earth has shown that new perspectives are valuable. We should have been learning from you from the beginning." After he left, Park sat alone in her office for a while. Through the window, she could see Earth below, the blue and green world where humanity had been born. They had come so far, so fast, from a single planet to respected members of a galactic community, but the journey was not over. It was only beginning. In the medical bay of a Council station, a human doctor worked alongside an alien physician to save a wounded soldier from a species neither had encountered before. In a training facility, human instructors taught swarm combat tactics to mixed squadrons who would carry those lessons across the galaxy. In laboratories, scientists from a dozen worlds worked together on new technologies that combined their unique knowledge. And in space, the Unified Defense Force patrolled, ready for whatever came next. Ships from many species flying in formation, protecting each other, learning from each other. Admiral Choi sat in his quarters aboard the Sejong the Great, now serving as the flagship of the Joint Fleet. He was writing his final report on the Devourer War. His hands moved slowly over the data tablet, choosing each word carefully. He wrote, "Earth entered galactic society as the youngest species. We were dismissed, underestimated, counted out before we even had a chance to prove ourselves. But we did not let that define us. We learned, we prepared, we adapted. And when the moment came, we showed that being young does not mean being weak. The Devourers are gone, but new threats will always emerge. That is the nature of the universe. What matters is how we face them. Not alone, not divided by pride or prejudice, but together, combining our strengths and learning from our differences. They counted humanity out. That was their mistake. But it was also our opportunity to prove that every voice matters, that new ideas are valuable, that cooperation is stronger than isolation. We changed the galaxy not by conquering it, but by defending it. Not by demanding respect, but by earning it. And in doing so, we became something more than just another species in the Council. We became partners, allies, friends. He saved the report and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, new worlds waited to be discovered. New species waited to join the Council. New challenges waited to test them all. But Earth would be ready. Not because they had the strongest fleet or the best technology, but because they understood something essential. That strength came from working together. That wisdom could come from any source. And that the galaxy was better when everyone had a voice. They had counted humanity out. Now, humanity stood among them as equals, ready to face whatever came next. Together,